Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we are talking with Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe started out as a psychologist and works as a women's coach with yoga and anything else. Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a yoga teacher and I also teach meditation and mindfulness. And my coaching is a combination of holistic spiritual and life coaching. And I also blend in a lot of, I have specialties in like disordered eating, codependency, relationships, communication. I do women's poetry circles. I have a lot of different hats that I wear in my work. But I absolutely love what I do.
I'm really interested to hear the story behind the name of your website.
Yes. So Tula, I picked the name Tula because it means balance in Sanskrit. I'm very fond of the Sanskrit language. It has such a rich history. And then I found out later from one of my clients who's from the Philippines that it means poem there. And I write poetry. So I'm like, oh, isn't that perfect? And then I found out from someone else that it means wind in Finnish. And I happen to be Finnish, so that was perfect. And I have a particular affinity for the wind and air. That's kind of my element. So it was a gift from the universe. So I'm so grateful for that. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes those just like seemingly innocuous ideas that just pop into your head have so much deeper and richer meaning?
Yes. I mean, right away, I knew that was the name of my business. I didn't question it. I didn't go this one or this one. It was just Tula Soul. That's what it is. And I think a lot of decisions in my life have been made that way. For example, when I was 12, I knew I was going to be a psychologist. That's what I was going to do. And I think that was a gift because, a lot of people struggle with what do I want to do with my life? But for me, it was already set. And I applied to one graduate school, got that. And I applied for one internship, got that. I just kind of trust that the universe is going to kind of follow my intentions. And it really does. Now, that's not to say that sometimes it hasn't thrown me for the major loops. But in the end, there's always a reason behind that. And there's always a lesson that I learn, and it all makes sense in context when I look back. Mm-hmm.
So tell us your story of how you got started into the coaching world.
Yeah, well, I was in private practice as a psychologist for 13 years, and I specialized in everything from yoga, from anxiety, depression to schizophrenia. And I saw kids, men and women, and I ended up being so busy that I had a waiting list. And I loved what I did, but I think I burnt out a little bit. And one of the things that was hard is the bureaucracy of psychology, having to diagnose everyone and then having to come up with a treatment plan that was fairly cookie cutter so the insurance companies approved it. And I realized that I was feeling constricted. I wanted to do more. I wanted to incorporate some of the yoga, some of the Eastern medicine traditions that I was learning on the side. And so when COVID hit, I closed my office and I decided, you know what, I'm going to open a virtual practice of coaching. So I got my coaching certifications. I continued my yoga education, got some other certifications, and opened up Tool of Soul. And I've never regretted it. And I decided I want to just work with women because I wanted to focus more. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on your website, you talk about yoga saved your life. Do you want
Yes.
to share with us
Yes.
how that happened?
Of course. Now, when I was 12 years old, I was hospitalized with anorexia. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew I was terrified of food. So at that time, I was really intrigued with the psychologist that helped me in treatment in the hospital. So that's when I decided I was going to be a psychologist, which was a gift. And in 2010, I was in treatment again for over a year, mix of inpatient and outpatient. And one day we went to my yoga body image class. And I went in and I realized I got into Warrior 2 and I had this really profound thought. I don't have to loathe my body. And as soon as I realized that, because I was in my body for the first time, I wasn't living from my neck up and I felt my muscles and I was embodied. And I thought, I don't have to loathe this body. I can actually be in it and experience it. And the tears just flowed. And I was like, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And the day after I left treatment, I started training to be a yoga teacher. And it really did, it was the sort of the last piece of my recovery that was missing. And I'm in recovery now, and yoga is such a big part of that. It's about moving with breath. It's about embodiment. And I think that so many people think of yoga as an exercise for bendy people. That's not what it is. It's not what it is at all. It's actually for everyone. And it's the original yoga was simply the asanas or poses was developed simply for monks to sit for hours in meditation. It wasn't developed as an exercise at all. So I like to teach the full yoga, not just I don't teach it as exercise. I teach it as a way of life, as it has been for me in changing my life. So I'm so grateful to it. Mm-hmm.
Yoga is one of those things that I think a lot of people do get into it for the exercise.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's so much more. And just the breath work.
Yes.
We breathe unconsciously every day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But having purpose to your breath brings a whole different aspect to living.
It really does. I mean, one of the first things that I teach clients is simply to extend the exhale. So if you inhale, let's say to a count of 4, and exhale to a count of 6 or 8, eventually, it slows down your nervous system. It brings calm. It's just an easy way to bring some relaxation into your day. If you're anxious, you can simply do it and nobody knows you're doing it. And then there's so many pranayama techniques, which is breathing techniques that I've studied. So I love working with people in meditation because that's the other thing I think where there's myths like you're supposed to get rid of your thoughts, right? No. It's more like just being intentional and following your breath. And so I've been meditating for I don't know how long. I still get distracted and have thoughts. That's not a big deal. It's just not attaching to them, just kind of watching them and then coming back to your breath. So meditation has also been a huge part of my life. And I think a lot of people are scared to try it, rightfully so. But if you have a good teacher, going along with you and finding the right meditation for you, then it's not so scary and it's not so, oh, I don't have time for that. Because you start with 1 minute, you don't have to do it for a long time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the whole idea of 1 minute or 3 minutes, it seems like it's just really short. But when you first start meditating, a minute can be really, really long.
Right.
But it builds the muscle. It's like starting with light weights or starting with,
That's right.
beginning poses in yoga. You don't like do crow on your second day to class.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
And
not
you don't
happening.
even try. You just don't. And that's the thing about meditation. Just like you said, it's a muscle and you build up. But even the little moments, you're being mindful and think about what we do every day. We are distracted. We are on our phones. We are on our computer. We are talking to people. We, in our society especially, we don't like quiet. We don't like stillness. So therefore, that's exactly what we need, to like unplug, detach, and sit with our own silence, because that's when you get to know who you are. And frankly, a lot of people, myself included, I was terrified of that. I didn't want to know who I was because I thought it would be something pretty scary. But you find out that we're all, what I found out was universal consciousness, that I am no different from anyone else. I'm no better, I'm no worse. I have the same feelings, the same desires, the same needs as everyone else. And when I realized that, everything just kind of lifted, like, okay, so it just, perspective shifted in such a profound way that I could accept everything and I could love myself because I love everybody, you know? So it's a beautiful experience.
And the thought that we're all connected,
Yes,
it's just like, it takes the onus off of just being you.
it does. It does. And it also takes away, in an interesting way, the responsibility for others. I had, growing up in an alcoholic family, I was very much codependent, taking on, feelings for everyone else. But knowing that we're all connected means I don't have to take care of anyone else, because they are responsible for their feelings and I'm responsible for mine. And I get to put my needs first, which I never have. And so realizing that too is such freedom. Mhm.
Yeah. And just being able to exist sometimes is freeing without having to have like a purpose, and
Yes.
be just relax in the connectedness and the disconnectedness, because they're kind of like the yin and yang of
Yes.
existence.
They really are. That's beautifully said. I think to just be, I tell people we're human beings, not human doings. And that is hard for us. And, the whole thing about, in our society, it's about achievement. It's about what you do. It's about how much you earn. And like, think about at a party, the first thing we say is, what do you do? What if instead we said, what is your passion? Wouldn't that be more interesting and more
Yeah.
relevant? Right. And I always, my dad didn't work because of depression and alcoholism. So I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I considered work differently. I considered it, I didn't put as much importance on it. And so when people talk about their jobs, and I'm talking to myself here too, because when I changed from being a psychologist to a coach, granted, my income went down, a lot of things changed. And I had to look at my ego and be like, okay, so why was I so identifying with that role? What does that mean? And then I realized that, yes, I was doing the same thing. I was so attached to that character, to that definition of who I was. And then I remind myself, and I tell people this, there are some people who don't work, they just live off their land, and the self-sustaining family, they have, celebrations in the community, and but there's no jobs, there's no income, there's no, and they make a life and they're happy. There's this whole idea of job and money, and it's all a construct, right? So I'm just learning to not identify so much with that.
It's kind of the matrix if you think about
It
it,
is.
because
It
we
is.
have abundance everywhere.
Mhm.
It's not like tomorrow there will be no abundance.
That's right.
Your abundance is shut off.
Yeah.
it only shuts off when you step back from the stream. I saw something today that I thought was really interesting on Instagram. And
Yeah.
I wish I remembered who posted it, but I don't.
Mhm.
The thing said we need to see moving water every day.
Oh, yes.
About that, I was like, wow, that's
We
because
are
I
water.
think we're water, and um everything, energy is like water. It moves, it's
Yes.
fluid, and it's everything is always in motion. Everything's
Mhm.
vibrating at a different frequency,
Yes.
and all of that um energy, it responds to other energy,
That's
and
right.
it can push and pull and arrange things,
Hmm.
and and bring things into being that didn't exist before.
Yep. Yep.
It just is reshaping, and then suddenly you've got
Mhm.
this new thing. And it's kind of a difference in the paradigm, where
It totally is.
for the longest time, and it just really goes to why I started this podcast,
Okay.
there was all these constructs around um, the way things should be, and
Hmm.
it really pushed people into almost a slave like
Hmm.
experience in this
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
and where they had to, like, well, you have to work for money so you can buy your
Hmm.
house and you have your car, and then you have to keep working and you have to
And
keep
you had
making
this type of
more. And
family with 2.5 kids, all that. Yep.
women had to be everything, be all you
Had
could
to be
be,
mothers.
and workers,
Yep.
and do all the housework. I mean,
Yep.
it got to the point, for me anyway, where it was just like, why do I need a husband again? I'm doing
Yes.
everything. And
Yes.
yeah, you're making some money, but I'm killing
What else are you
myself
doing?
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that paradigm is shifting, and it's getting
Yes.
more into people recognizing that we're all part of a flow, and
That's
we
right.
all are connected, and we all have gifts to share.
Yep.
And it's it's the giving and the taking and the ebb and the flow,
Hmm.
and it just it's such a better way to me.
Oh, it is. And that's the feminine way. I mean, the yin yang, the feminine way is more fluid, softer, not, but more creative. And the masculine is a little bit more orderly, more put it in the box, and we
Mhm.
need both. We need a balance of both. But for however long, men have been kind of ruling our society, and it's not working very well. I mean, we need more feminine influence. And I think that that maybe started, I mean, you can argue that there's some fallback the other way, but the fluidity is so essential in terms of accepting everyone, in terms of um, seeing new paradigms, seeing, understanding new things. I chose not to have children. And I still, when we go to my husband's thing, people still say, "How are your children?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't have children." "Oh, how are your pets?" "Yeah, I have fish. They're just fine." You know? And it's like,
No dogs or cats.
yeah. And now, when I meet people, just meeting people, and if they say, "Yeah, I'm engaged," I say, "Oh, is your partner a man or a woman?" Because why not? I think that's a respectful question. And I think just being more open to that kind of thing is just, uh, it's an evolution of humankind. We're just becoming more aware. And I think it's an individual responsibility, and then also to share it with the world, which is kind of what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Mhm.
souls, bunch of
Yeah.
souls wandering
That's
around, and
my
we just
teacher's
in
yeah,
these meat
earth
bodies.
suits. My teacher says earth suits, and she says we're
Yeah.
all divine beings having a human experience. I love that.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
we're just expressing in whatever container we're in,
Yep.
and it doesn't have to define, our bodies don't have to define who we are.
No. And coming from someone who's had body dysmorphia and anorexia, That is a very, very important thing that I'm still learning. I mean, I still have days when I'm not seeing not right, but my image is distorted. And so I remind myself that, first of all, that doesn't matter. That's just my earth suit. And secondly, there's so many ways I challenge the ideal body image. One thing I do is remember that, the ideal used to be very Rubenesque, beautiful, curvy women. And it wasn't until like the 60s, we have the Twiggy model, that women shrank. And it's not a coincidence, because women at that time were starting to earn money and become independent. Well, let's just call it the man, didn't like that. And so the cosmetics industry, the diet industry boomed. And women then again drew their attention to shrinking themselves and being quiet. And I'm not okay with that. I like to be very loud and I like to take up space. So I remember that. And then I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not falling for that. No, I deserve to take up space and I deserve to use my voice. So I remind women of that, because it's easy to get, not easy, well, for me, it's easy to get upset about the patriarchy and then recognize its part in all of this. So that's an important aspect.
I still think this. At the days of Twiggy, because I'm old enough to remember Twiggy.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
That women were expected to be prepubescent.
Yes.
Their entire lives. And that model looks like little boys.
It does.
Not women.
Think about how much more you can control a woman if she's a prepubescent.
Mm-hmm.
Think how much more power you have if she's small.
And if she's not menstruating because she's starving.
Yep. And you don't have to worry about getting her pregnant. Don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
It's all, yeah.
That's interesting. I love seeing the power that women in particular, but coaches in general, are putting out there in terms of shifting how the world looks at different things, and how we can address problems in a different way.
Yes, that was the other thing. When I was a psychologist, everything had a label, a diagnosis. And I believe in psychology. I very firmly do. However, diagnostic labels do not begin to describe the complexity of someone's, issues. I think my mentor said, there is no mental illness, there's just trauma. Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with that too. And I think, when I'm coaching, I don't worry about labels like that. I look for existential angst. I'm going deep, and that's my passion. Obviously we address the issues, but I want to know like the spiritual depth. I want to know what's lacking there. I want to know transgenerational trauma. I want to look at all of that, because there's so much more to work with than just, I'm having panic attacks. There's just so much more than that. So
they don't just spring up out of a vacuum.
No.
There's a reason for them.
Right. And I mean, I can teach techniques to, educate about panic attacks, educate about different breathing techniques, et cetera, and make it easier to deal with. But let's find out why. Let's look at all of the reasons underneath, and let's find a way to your bliss. Let's find a way that you can, be. And I always want to get to contentment versus happiness, because happiness is fleeting, and it's usually when you acquire something. I'll be happy
dopamine hit.
Yeah, exactly. But contentment, on the other hand, is just being at peace with what is. So you can be content no matter what. Yeah. So I love the fact that I can just do things the way that I want to, and always incorporating meditation and somatic techniques, and breathing, all of that stuff, because it just makes a whole package. And I do some qigong, and I'm doing sound healing training this next weekend. So I'm so excited about that, because I do a lot of chanting, and we do mantras, and they so much add to everything, because the vibrations, like you mentioned, they heal in certain ways. And Sanskrit, the language, is such a way that the vibrations of the sounds. Yeah.
And it's not like woo-woo stuff. It's
No.
science. There's science around speaking over water.
Yes, there is.
Be kindly to your plants, they'll grow.
Yes.
If you speak kindly to yourself, you will flourish.
That's exactly right. I talk to myself all the time. It works. I mean, it really does.
Work. And leave yourself love notes on the bathroom
honestly,
mirror.
Why not? Yeah, I have your beautiful, I have your body. Wait, your body size does not, what is it? Your body size does not equal your worth, or something like that. A lot of good ones like that. And I have a little song that I made up for myself when I'm anxious. It's kind of like a lullaby I sing to myself. And it's beautiful, because we all have different parts in us. We're still our child self, and we have that in us. So sometimes if you get anxious, you can literally, that little child can come present. And so you need to comfort a little child. So a lullaby works pretty good, or something really soothing like that, or holding a teddy bear. I have a teddy bear. There's nothing wrong with those kind of things, because sometimes you're working with different ages within.
I think that we're all a little bit of a split personality, in that we have different personas that we embody, and it doesn't even have to be around other people. It can be ourselves.
That's right.
And if we have enough trauma, then they start presenting distinctly.
Yes.
But I think just in general, we have, everybody's experienced trauma to one level or another.
For sure.
Get to be an adult without going through it.
I know, it's a hard thing to even quantify. It's kind of like, in today's, there's always been, they call it like there's big T trauma and little T trauma, but I'm like, whatever, trauma is trauma. I don't think it's helpful to quantify. And many of my clients would say, well, yeah, that happened, but it's nothing like my friend who had this happen, or, it's nothing like people that went through this. But I always say, you don't have to compare trauma, because there's always enough compassion. You don't have to compare. Your trauma is yours. It's valid. That's all.
And being able to accept that and then deal with it and move on, so helpful. Because when you start to say, well, it's not as bad as whoever's, then you're minimizing what you went through, and you're not able to deal with it and move on, or reframe it. I found that reframing helps me so much when I recognize that there was trauma in my life, and it might not have been terribly horrible trauma to the next person down the road. For me personally, it was very traumatic. But reframing it and finding the gift, because there's always a gift in there somewhere. There's something that you can learn and we can take away and we can be grateful for. And that allows us to take the next step and to grow a little bit more.
Yeah. And I love that. The reframing is important. And I go another step where it's digested and integrated. And a lot of that is somatic work, like locating it in the body and then discharging it. And, so it's a process. But I think, you're right. It's that you do need to go through that to heal and to move on, to continue evolving. And that's the hard work. It's not easy, but it's so rewarding, right?
It is. And it makes a difference in the world, because the next person that you run into, you're not pushing whatever that trauma response is on them.
That's right.
You're able to be kind to them and let them, it just kind of ripples out.
It does, across the whole world. And in terms of transgenerational trauma, it carries forward. So if you make changes in the family line of trauma, then you're stopping a whole system, which is incredibly hard. But we have that power within us to do so.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at ourselves and what's going on in yoga, the way to enlightenment is svadhyaya, which is self-study. So it's actually, learning about yourself is the way to reach enlightenment.
And it's the way that the world will change as we
exactly
become aligned with who we are and what we want and how we want the world to look. And we project that out, it connects with the other energy that's out there.
Yes.
And then the world does change.
Yep.
And it is changing. And to me, it's really exciting because I just love the direction things are going right now.
Yeah, I do too. There's a lot of people who are just waking up to who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so exciting.
Yeah. And there's people like you who are exposing the public to people, who are in this process and helping people access that, and find ways to discover themselves. So I'm very grateful to you,
I appreciate that. It's really my honor to be able to talk to the coaches out there that are doing stuff and really providing solutions to problems that people are just now realizing they need solved.
Yes,
and if they could solve these problems, then the next step is that they're going to just be better people and they're going to live a better life, a better quality of life.
And life is going to be easier and more congruent with who they are, and the relationships are entirely different. First of all, there's going to be some relationships that you lose because you'll realize that's not it's not feeding you, it's not serving a purpose. And that's hard, but it's what you have to do as you grow. Because if you're on this evolution path getting better and healing and the other person isn't, it's not going to work. But then you draw in people because your aura changes, so you're drawing in people who are going to nourish you and who you can nourish. So that whole process happens too in the meantime. Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
Before the show, we were talking a little bit about you were making an offer to our listeners.
Yeah, I always like to be strange with things. So 7 is my lucky number, and I wanted to offer a free yoga session and also a free women's holistic coaching session. And I thought, how can I do this? So the 7th person who contacts me through my website gets to choose if they want yoga or coaching, and then the 7th person who wants the other will get that. So my website is tulasoul.com. So that's TULASOUL.com. And so there's a contact me button on there. And if you just want to send your email and let me know what you would like, whether you want the yoga or the coaching session, and then I will let you know if you want or not, and we'll go from there. And this is for those identifying as women only. Yep.
That sounds awesome. And it will be online. The coaching session's online. It's not like,
you
don't have to travel to Dr. Joe's.
No. Nope. My office goes everywhere.
Don't you just love that?
I do. It's very handy.
So what's the one thing you want the audience to take away from this conversation today?
I want everyone to know that you have everything, absolutely everything you need within you to heal. Everything. And you deserve it. You're worth it. Excellent. That's an important message. Yeah.
That is a very important message. And it's easy to hear, but it's sometimes hard for people to actually absorb.
That's a really good point, Jill. Yes. It can go in here in your mind, but take it into your heart and into your soul is very hard. But that's why you just keep telling yourself. Sometimes you have to act as if, and just keep telling yourself, I love myself. I love myself. At some point, it is going to click. Mm-hmm.
It does. It does. So
Yeah.
we already told people how they could get in touch with you. Through the
Yeah.
contact button on your
For
website.
sure. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely put the link in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Jo.
Oh, it has been my pleasure, Jill. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for listening. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.